After 26 races, the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs have been set. 16 drivers, 10 races, only one of them is going to come out on top, and we know damn well it's not going to be Harrison Burton. And in this video, I'm going to do the most basic, predictable thing ever when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. My playoff predictions for 2024. Who I think will win Who I think will win what races, and who will get eliminated at the end of the 3 races for each round. One of them is probably going to be pretty obvious. But enough rambling, let's just get started. Our first round of the playoffs is the round of 16. The round of 16 will take place across 3 races, with the opener being at Atlanta, the second race being at Watkins Glen, and the elimination race being at Bristol. Now, this is probably going to be one of the more all over the place rounds, especially when it comes to tracks. We have a super speedway, a road course, and a short track for this round. Now, who do I predict to win these races? First off, we have Atlanta. Since Atlanta is a super speedway, anyone can win those races, especially as we found out earlier this year with Suarez winning over Blaney, still molding to this day. So who do I pick to win this race? I'm gonna go something wild here. I'm gonna predict that Noah Gragson will win this race. Now, I know he's not in the playoffs, but then again, like I said, it's a super speedway. Anyone can win, even the non-playoff guys. So I predict Noah Gragson to win Atlanta to open up the playoffs. Watkins Glen, obviously it's a road course, so many different drivers are going to have different strengths and weaknesses. This one's going to be a lot harder for anyone to win this race, especially with Shane Van Gisbergen competing in that race. So, being the biased mofo that I am, I'm going to pick Shane Van Gisbergen to win Watkins Glen. Also, I just want to see Juan Pablo Montoya slam into the jet dryers again. And for our final race in the round of 16, we've got Bristol. Now, the Bristol race earlier this year was pretty chaotic, especially with all the tire fall off and all that stuff, which eventually saw Denny Hamlin winning that, and then getting a penalty for it like 5 months later. So who do I pick to win Bristol? I'm gonna say Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has the most wins at Bristol out of any other driver currently racing in the Cup Series. And he's not had a good season. I'm gonna be straightforward. He missed the playoffs, and he's only had 5 top 5s this entire season. He's actually tied with Bubba Wallace, who also missed the playoffs. So, I think that Kyle's going to break that long winless streak at his best track on the schedule. Now, who do I predict to be eliminated in the round of 16? The 4 drivers that I think are going home. First one, I think it's pretty obvious. Harrison Burton's not going anywhere. As much as I want to see him make it far, just because underdog story, I don't see Harrison making it past the first round. And the same can be said for Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez. And the 4th and final driver that I think is going to be eliminated is Martin Truex Jr. Martin has been absolutely suffering these last few races, and unfortunately, I don't really see it going anywhere. I think it's going to continue. So I see Truex in his final season getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. The second round of the playoffs is the round of 12, which will once again take place across 3 races, being Kansas, Talladega, and the Charlotte Roval. Starting off with Kansas. So far in the next-gen era, which has had 5 races at Kansas, 4 of them have been won by Toyotas, with the only exception being the most recent race at Kansas, where Kyle Larson in a Chevy beat Chris Buescher in a Ford by 0.0001 seconds, making it the closest finish in NASCAR Cup Series history. That's how close Buescher was to missing the frickin' playoffs. Brushing that aside, I'm going to stick to my guns, and I think that a Toyota is going to win this race. Which Toyota do I think is going to win? Christopher Bell. Mainly because he's driving a Toyota, but also because Christopher Bell's had a pretty solid season up to this point. He's won 3-4 races, I think? I don't know, I've kind of lost count at this point. But I see Christopher Bell winning at Kansas. Next up, we've got the big one, Talladega, the wildcard race of the playoffs, which will also mark the halfway point, being in the middle of the round of 12. Now, this one's going to be pretty tricky, because much like Atlanta, Talladega is a super speedway where anyone can win. Although there are a handful of drivers that are really good at super speedway races. Guys like Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, Michael McDowell, guys like that. I can't think of any others right now. So who do I think is going to win Talladega? I'm going to say Ross Chastain. I know he might not be the best super speedway racer, but he has won Talladega in the past, although that probably doesn't really make much of a difference. Most of my guesses for race winners are just kind of random at this point. So I'm going to pick Ross Chastain to win Talladega. And to cap off the round of 12, we have the Charlotte Roval, which is another road course in the playoffs. It actually used to be the only one until Watkins Glen was added to the mix this year. So who do I think is going to take the checkered flag at the Roval? I'm going to say William Byron. William Byron has actually had a pretty decent track record up to this point, and he did finish second last year behind AJ Allmendinger. I don't know if AJ is going to be in this race, so that's kind of my main kind of guess at this point. If not Byron, then maybe Chase Elliott. He's arguably the best road course racer in the Cup Series that's running full-time. Well, that is until next year when Shane joins the full-time field. But, yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns and go with Byron. Now, who do I think are going to be eliminated in the round of 12? First off, I think probably my most obvious one, that, like, I'm pretty sure you guys are probably surprised I haven't mentioned him yet. I don't think Chase Briscoe is making it past this round, unfortunately. Again, much like Harrison Burton, I think it'd be kind of cool if he made it because underdog story, especially with it being the final season for SHR, but I don't see him going anywhere. And I think the same thing applies to Alex Bowman, Joey Logano, and Ty Gibbs. I just don't really see those guys going anywhere. They haven't really had great seasons up to this point. Sure, Bowman won Chicago, Logano won Nashville and the All-Star race, etc., etc. But other than that, they've kind of just been non-existent this season. And I feel like the same thing could apply with Gibbs. So, those are the 4 drivers I pick to be eliminated in the round of 12. The third round of the playoffs is the round of 8, which, once again, will be across 3 races, being Las Vegas, Homestead Miami, and Martinsville. Who do I pick to win Las Vegas? I'm going to say Ryan Blaney. Mainly because I'm just kind of desperate for another Blaney win at this point. Okay, but in all seriousness, I do think Blaney will be able to do pretty well during these playoffs. I mean, last year he entered the playoffs 12th in the standings, and he went on to win the championship. This year, he's going to be 5th heading into the playoffs. So yeah, I see Blaney turning on the Jets for these playoffs and winning at Vegas to lock himself into the championship 4. Next up, we have Homestead Miami Speedway, the track which honestly should be the championship race, but it's not, so sad. I'm gonna pick Tyler Reddick to win in Miami. Tyler has been extremely good this season. Sure, he's only won 2 races, and his win at Talladega was kind of a result of Michael McDowell being sent to the Shadow Realm, but he did win the regular season championship, and he is looking very strong, so I predict Reddick to get a win to lock himself into the Final 4. And finally, we have Martinsville, the final race of the round of 8 and the penultimate race of the entire season. This is the race where the championship 4 will be officially decided. And I'm picking Kyle Larson to win this race. Kyle had a really good showing last time he went to this place, and he even got a top 5 finish out of it. I think he finished 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. It was either him or Elliott, I can't remember. But yeah, I see Larson winning that race and locking himself into the Final 4 once again. And the drivers that I see getting eliminated are Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, and Christopher Bell. I know it's kind of a bit of a shock considering that Christopher's going to be 2nd in the playoff standings heading into the start of it. But I don't know, I kind of just see Byron making it over Bell for some reason. So, my predictions for the Championship 4 for this year's Cup Series season are Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and William Byron. Those 4 drivers are going to duke it out for one final race at Phoenix Raceway to determine the 2024 Cup Series champion. So who do I think is going to be? I'm predicting that this year's Cup Series champion will be Josh Bilicki. Gotcha there, didn't I? Okay, for real though. My pick for the 2024 Cup Series champion is Kyle Larson. Larson has easily had the best season so far out of any other driver, with 4 wins on the season, including maybe a handful of controversial ones, mainly the Brickyard. But it's clear that Larson is still a championship contender and easily the best race car driver that we currently have in terms of raw talent. So I see Larson pulling it off and winning his 2nd NASCAR Cup Series championship. So yeah, those are my playoff predictions for the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. I said playoffs twice. But yeah, that's all I really got to say. Josh Bilicki will win the championship.